The subreddit, known simply as AskReddit, allows users to post questions of any kind and hopefully get a thread of responses. A lot of questions that get posted are lighthearted and come from a desire to learn more about the world and people's experiences. However, some threads pose deeper, more intimate questions. For example, in these threads, the original poster asked the community about near-death experiences and what the users saw during what could have been the final moments on Earth. These experiences often come with lengthy stories and details that will make you shiver. Number 5. When I was 10 or so, I loved snakes. I read everything there was to read about them, particularly snakes in Germany where I lived. I used to spend my summer holidays in Bavaria, south of Germany, and sometimes I went on outings through nature with my dad. It's about 9 AM or so, and we walk in the direction of a moor. We didn't need to go far. Still at the lake in front of the moor, there's a stone, and on top of it, basking in the morning sun, lies a brown snake. I knew in Germany there are only 2 types of poisonous snakes, and one of those is very localized in a southern black forest far away from where we were. The other one is a common European adder. In Germany, we call that one the cross adder, as it typically has a very distinctive cross marking all across its back. So I look at this snake, and instead of being green with cross markings, it's completely brown. So I grab the snake by its neck, and that's when it suddenly jumps at my hand. I look at my hand, and there are 2 distinct puncture wounds. My friend ran to get my dad, which was about a 10-minute run. I don't remember much from that, just lying on a bench, seeing the occasional light and hearing the occasional voice, and puking. Finally, my dad arrives and has to carry me back 10 minutes. That's when it gets a bit crazy. Lying on my dad's shoulder, I remember seeing the infamous light. I remember hearing a voice, a female voice. My mother passed away when I was still young, and I don't remember her at all, but somehow I knew that this was her voice. She beckoned me to come to her, telling me how much easier it would be if I were with her. With that, the light and the voice disappeared, and the rest of my rescue was just flashes of consciousness. I still remember being in an ambulance on my way to a football field, as that was the only place that the emergency helicopter could land. In the end, I woke up in a specialized hospital 200 miles away in Munich and stayed there for about 8 days. I learned to never ever pick up a snake again. Number 4. I was with my family at the beach in San Diego. I think it was early June a few years ago. We'd gone out to the beach around 10 AM and the tide had been going out, so the water was pretty shallow for a long way out. Well, being 15, of course, I wanted to go out as far as I could, but my dad was telling me I needed to come back. I'm frantically trying to swim towards the shore, but I realize that I can't. I tell my dad that I'm stuck and he decides to try to help me get back, though he ends up getting pulled out with me. At this point, we're both freaking out pretty bad since the waves are getting really big and we're far out and start to get pulled under each time a wave goes by. The waves had gotten tall enough that we couldn't really see the horizon or the shore, and we started waving and yelling for help. But for some reason, there was no lifeguard in spite of there being a station, and there was not that many people on the part of the beach that we were at. So we're screaming for help, and my dad is trying to help me stay above water, and I'm screaming help like I never have, and I honestly thought I was going to die. My dad then screams, "Lord Jesus, please help me," and instantly the ocean went flat. I have no clue what happened, but all the waves just suddenly stopped, and some guy on a surfboard showed up and offered us help. I had no idea where he came from, but me and my dad grabbed the surfboard and he helped us back to shore. If he hadn't shown up or if the waves hadn't stopped, me and my dad almost definitely would have drowned. That was the only time in my life where I physically had the urge to kiss the ground. Number 3. A few years back, I was in a workplace accident that nearly killed me by a slow crushing. Time just seemed to slow down. All of my senses seemed to get a lot sharper all of a sudden. Lights were brighter, sound was louder, smells were stronger, and a sense of hopelessness overcame me, but there was nothing I could do to escape the situation. I thought that I was either going to die or going to be snapped in half and left a paraplegic, and all I could think about was my daughter. Luckily, neither of those things ever happened, as the person operating the piece of machinery that was crushing me noticed that it was going at a slower rate than usual and stopped to check why. It left me unable to walk properly without pain for about 6 months, but I'm fine now and everything checked out. It was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life, and I'll never understand that feeling again. Number 2. My sister was shot while she was out walking her dogs in our small town in Alaska. The bullet ricocheted around her bowels, piercing them in 9 places. Even though we had one of the best doctors in the north at our ER, she bled out and died on the operating room table. She was brought back moments later by doctors though. She recalls drifting up into a very bright light. She says there was no pain, and in fact she felt compelled to travel into the brilliance. It led to an amazing river, and the look on her face when she described this place helps me realize that that radiant endless joy is not a possibility, but an eventuality. She describes playing in the river that consisted of pure knowledge. Anything she ever wanted to know was at her fingertips. As she played in the river, she could sense figures on a distant shore. They were our people, she explained, our family, our animals, all waiting patiently for her to finish playing in the river and wade towards them on the shore. But she never made it to the shore. A being approached her. She didn't know what it was except to describe it as pure unconditional love. It radiated love, and all things diminished before the radiance of that love. She said that it spoke to her and said that she had to go back because it wasn't her time. She described it as a completion, a peace, a welcoming. To leave was incomprehensible, but to decline was incomprehensible. She felt infused with a purpose. They patched her femoral artery, but explained that the graft would eventually give and she would pass away. With every single breath, my sister's heart beats from death, and I've never met anyone who's more alive. Number 1. My experience was years ago, and it was brief. I was 19 and in a car accident where I was ejected. I vaguely recall an ambulance ride, but it felt like my mind and vision were outside of my body. It's hard to explain. It felt like my body was in one spot, but I could see my body from a different nearby vantage point. I don't know what exactly I was seeing out of though. What I do remember was at a hospital. I felt like I was walking behind a doctor, going down a hallway into a little room that had an old phone. The doctor picked up the phone and made arrangements for someone to pick up someone at an airport, as he was dealing with some trauma cases. I don't know how I knew this, but I realized that the doctor on the phone had a disabled son named Ben. No conversations took place about Ben, and nobody gave me this information. It was just something that I knew. Pretty quickly after having that Ben thought, I felt like someone was standing behind me. Then I woke up days later in the ICU. The only standout thing I remembered was the doctor who made the phone call. I knew what he looked like, and when I saw him, I remembered him, and so I told him that I remembered him. He was a little surprised as I was unconscious when he saw me. I told him that I followed him down a hall and described the little room that he was in and a phone that lit up, and he arranged for someone to be picked up at an airport. The only thing I could tell him was that I knew that he had a son named Ben. He visited me a couple times after that and asked me to tell my story again. He asked if I remembered anything else, but I had nothing else to offer. It was such a strange experience. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this narration, maybe consider checking out my personal channel at youtube.com/ty_knots. And if you like this video, be sure to click that like button, subscribe, and notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads.